A geopolitical tremor is rattling the foundations of West Africa. Togo, a coastal nation long regarded as a pillar of diplomatic neutrality, is signaling a potential pivot that could redraw the region's economic and security map. The nation is publicly considering an alliance with the Alliance of Sahel States, a bloc formed by the military-led governments of Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger. This move threatens to grant the landlocked Sahelian alliance its first coveted coastline, a strategic shift that could fundamentally alter the balance of power and trade in the region. This development affords a backdrop of rising Pan-African sentiment and a growing weariness with traditional Western allied regional bodies. As Togo navigates this complex diplomatic landscape, it finds itself at the heart of a struggle between established alliances and a new assertive vision for African sovereignty. What if I told you a nation known for its quiet diplomacy is now considering a formal pact with the Alliance of Sahel States? This is a startling reality unfolding in Togo. In early 2025, Foreign Minister Robert Dossi made a statement that sent ripples across the continent, declaring that joining the Alliance of Sahel States is not impossible. This isn't just diplomatic speak. It's a profound signal of a potential realignment. The AES, comprising of Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, was forged in defiance after its members broke away from the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, citing a desire to reclaim their sovereignty from foreign influence. For these landlocked nations, an alliance with Togo is not merely symbolic, it is a lifeline. Togo's deep-water port of Lomé offers the one thing they desperately lack: direct access to the Atlantic Ocean. This maritime gateway could revolutionize the AES trade logistics, military capabilities, and its ambitious plans for economic independence. The strategic implications are immense, promising to create a new economic corridor from the heart of the Sahel to the global sea lanes. Adding to that intrigue, just as this diplomatic overture was made, the Togolese government announced a suspension of all mining permits. The official reason, according to reports by local media outlets like Togo First, is to overhaul the nation's decades-old mining codes. However, the timing is too precise to be a coincidence. In a country rich with phosphate and gold, freezing new exploration is a power move. It suggests Togo is fundamentally rethinking who controls its vast natural resources and, by extension, who its true partners are. This sentiment appears to resonate with the public. A recent survey revealed that a significant portion of Togolese citizens support closer ties with the AES. The coastal door to the landlocked alliance is cracking open, but it remains to be seen if this is a temporary strategic maneuver or the beginning of a permanent and historic shift. Was the Alliance of Sahel States born out of rebellion or revolution? Most international pacts are forged in peacetime, products of careful diplomacy. The AES, however, was born in defiance. In 2023, the governments of Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger took the unprecedented step of severing ties with ECOWAS, demanding the withdrawal of French military forces and charting a new independent course. This was not merely a protest, it was a fundamental rejection of a post-colonial order that they felt had failed them. The AES was established under the Liptako-Guma Charter with a clear, assertive goal to establish an architecture of collective defense and mutual assistance. For them, this means achieving what they term real sovereignty, an end to foreign military bases, unfair economic partnerships, and political puppetry. While these regimes face credible accusations of democratic backsliding, they have successfully tapped into a powerful undercurrent of Pan-African frustration with dependency and a history of broken promises. The AES is not just talking, it is building. The member states are actively creating a joint military force to combat terrorism on their own terms and are floating the audacious idea of a Sahel Federation with a single currency and unifying economic policies. Now, consider adding Togo to this equation, a civilian-led government with a stable political environment, and most critically, a modern, efficient port. With a Togolese partnership, the AES transformed from a desert-bound security pact into a continental force with a direct link to the global economy. This is why Togo's potential accession is so critical. The AES represents a prototype of a new kind of African cooperation, one that does not seek permission from Paris or Washington. The old playbook of sanctions and isolation has failed to break the juntas. Instead, they have consolidated their power and are now actively expanding their influence. The question is no longer what the AES is, but rather who is next to answer its call. How does a nation known for its loyalty to established orders find itself at the crossroads of a regional rebellion? For years, Togo was a model of compliance within the ECOWAS political structure. It maintained close ties with France and remained a steadfast member of ECOWAS, navigating the turbulent geopolitics of the region with a quiet, disciplined diplomacy. Yet, the ground beneath its feet has shifted. The old rules no longer seem to apply, and Lomé has begun to ask a question that was once unthinkable. What if the Sahelian rebels have a point? This introspection has been followed by decisive action. In 2024, Togo adopted a new constitution, ushering in its Fifth Republic and signaling a broader institutional reset. This culminated in Foreign Minister Robert Dussi's public contemplation of joining the AES, a calculated signal that Togo is reassessing its options. This pivot is not just an elite project. According to survey in late 2024, 54% of Togolese citizens either agree or strongly agree with the idea of joining the AES. The streets of the capital may be calm, but the political sentiment is clear and growing. Naturally, this has caused alarm within ECOWAS and in Paris. Losing Togo would be a devastating blow, not just symbolically, but logistically. The port of Lomé in the hands of the AES would grant the bloc significant economic leverage, potentially disrupting the entire West African order. Togo's potential move is not driven solely by a newfound ideological zeal. It is also a pragmatic calculation based on survival. The nation faces mounting economic pressure and the looming fear of being marginalized in a region that is transforming at a pace quicker than established institutions like ECOWAS can manage. Togo finds itself pulled by the promise of a new Pan-African vision and pushed by the stark realities of its own economic survival. The critical question remains, is this a move of conviction or one of cold, hard calculation? Have you ever wondered how a single stretch of coastline can redefine the power of an entire region? If West African geopolitics were a game of chess, Togo is leveraging its most valuable square. The founding members of the Alliance of Sahel States are bound by a shared vulnerability. They are all landlocked. This geographic reality has meant a historical dependence on their coastal neighbors for access to global trade, a dependency that has often come with political strings attached. Now, picture this landlocked bloc gaining a strategic partner in Togo. The port of Lomé is not just any port. It is a modern deepwater hub, consistently ranked among the most efficient in Africa. Should the AES secure a former alliance, it would effectively break free from the economic and political leverage currently held by ECOWAS coastal states. The implications are staggering. Strategic analysts suggest the AES is already envisioning new infrastructure projects, railways and highways, all designed to converge on the port of Lomé, creating a new trade artery. This is not just about commerce. A friendly port on the Atlantic would give the AES a potential naval footprint, a strategic asset in a region where control of sea lanes is crucial for security and sovereignty. This is a game changer, and the established powers know it. Togo's pivot would do more than just shift political allegiances. It would redraw trade maps and force a complete realignment of security and logistics for the entire West African region. And this is not some distant dream. The port is operational. The political will appears to be gathering momentum, and all that might be missing is a signature. If the Sahel Alliance secures access to this port, it could win a strategic victory without firing a single shot. When does a nation's control over its soil become an act of political defiance? You know a government is getting serious about sovereignty when it deliberately turns off a major tap of foreign revenue. In early 2025, Togo did just that, stunning international investors by abruptly suspending the issuance of all new mining permits. The Ministry of Mines described it as a necessary pause to reform the country's 1996 mining code. But in the context of African resource politics, this was a clear declaration. For decades, the continent's vast mineral wealth has been a source of immense profit for foreign corporations, while local communities have often been left with environmental degradation and economic despair. Togo, a country sitting on significant deposits of phosphate and gold, has been part of this story. Now, The government says it is rewriting the rules to create a more transparent and equitable system that prioritizes local communities. The timing of this decision is impossible to ignore. It follows a pattern set by the AES states themselves. As confirmed by Reuters, Burkina Faso has launched audits of its largest industrial mines to ensure compliance and boost local benefits. Mali has moved to secure greater state control over its mineral resources. Togo is now echoing this emerging doctrine of resource nationalism. This is the new front line in the battle for African sovereignty. A war fought not with weapons, but with permits, policies, and ports. Resource nationalism is no longer just a political slogan. It is becoming a coherent regional strategy. By taking this step, cautious Togo is decisively taking a side. Yet, every assertion of independence invites a reaction. And the biggest challenge for Togo may not come from foreign cooperation, but from the very regional bloc it is preparing to leave behind. Is a nation's foreign policy decided in presidential palaces or in the hearts of its own people? When a country dramatically shifts its alliances, the narrative often focuses on the elite. But in Togo, the voices of the street is growing louder, and it is telling a story that cannot be ignored. The 2024 survey delivered a stunning verdict. 54% of Togolese citizens support joining the AES. This sentiment is not born from a lack of information, but from decades of lived experiences. For many ordinary Togolese, ECOWAS promised regional integration and economic prosperity, but delivered border-crossing hassles and a security framework that felt dominated by external interests. Against this backdrop, the AES, despite its governance by military juntas, is speaking a language that resonates, the language of dignity and of African solution for African problems. Whether the alliance can deliver on this promise is an open question, but its message is undeniably powerful, especially among a youth population that is educated, connected, and deeply disillusioned with the status quo. Across Togo, from student unions to community leaders, there is a growing demand for a fundamental reset. They want mining revenues to build local schools and hospitals. They want a meaningful say in their nation's destiny. The government in Lomé is listening, but ECOWAS appears to be sticking to its old script of sanctions and diplomatic pressure. This strategy, however, may be backfiring. As external pressure mounts, it often has the unintended consequences of strengthening national resolve. The real struggle for Togo's future, therefore, is not just between rival governments. It's an internal battle between the people's rising demand for sovereignty and the lingering fear of the economic and political cost of isolation. When these two powerful forces collide, something will have to break. Is this the dawn of a new era for West Africa, or just another turn in its complex history? The story of this region has, for too long, been written by others. Borders were drawn, trade deals were signed, and resources were extracted by powers far from African shores. Even after independence, the institutions that emerged often retain deep ties to former colonial powers, with economies linked to currencies like the CFA franc and militaries dependent on foreign training. Now, for the first time in a generation, a different script is being written. The Alliance of Sahel States is not a perfect model. It is a block of military regimes with records that demand serious scrutiny, yet has forced a critical and long overdue conversation across the continent. Who truly holds power in West Africa? Who set the rules of the game, and who has the right to challenge them? Togo's potential move towards the AES is a landmark event. It shows that a civilian-led democracy is willing to align with a bloc that is actively rewriting the regional rulebook, even if that means sacrificing international approval. Why? Because prestige does not pave roads, and donor approvals does not put food on the table. What the Togolese people and millions across Africa are demanding is a sense of ownership over their land, over their laws, their leadership. The ultimate question is whether this pivot will lead to a sustainable and prosperous future, or if it will become another chapter in Africa's long cycle of hope and disappointment. Will the AES evolve into a genuine force for African cooperation? Will Togo's reforms lead to the empowerment of its people, or simply concentrate power in a new set of hands? Only time will provide the answers. But what is undeniable is that the tide is shifting. West Africa is no longer content to simply react to the world. It is beginning to make its own choices. And in that act of choosing lies the seed of something truly revolutionary. This is Frontline Africa. If you value truth unfiltered and power reframed from an African lens, subscribe, like, and drop your thoughts. I am Ezekiel Enejeta. See you in the next one.